The Book of Revelation. Darby's translation 1890. Revelation 8. And when it opened the seventh seal, there was silence in the heaven about half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and much incense was given to him, that he might give efficacy to the prayers of all saints at the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense went up with the prayers of the saints, out of the hand of the angel before God. And the angel took the censer, and filled it from the fire of the altar, and cast it on the earth, and there were voices, and thunders and lightnings, and an earthquake. And the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves that they might sound with their trumpets. And the first sounded his trumpet, and there was hail and fire, mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the 3rd part of the earth was burned up, and the 3rd part of the trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. And the 2nd angel sounded his trumpet, and as a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the 3rd part of the sea became blood, and the 3rd part of the creatures which were in the sea which had life died, and the 3rd part of the ships were destroyed. And the 3rd angel sounded his trumpet, and there fell out of the heaven a great star, burning as a torch, and it fell upon the 3rd part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the 3rd part of the waters became wormwood, and many of the men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. And the 4th angel sounded his trumpet, and the 3rd part of the sun was smitten, and the 3rd part of the moon, and the 3rd part of the stars, so that the 3rd part of them should be darkened, and that the day should not appear for the 3rd part of it, and the night the same. And I saw, and I heard an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, 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 to them that dwell upon the earth, for the remaining voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels who are about to sound. Revelation 8. By F. B. Hole. The opening of the 6th seal, Revelation 6 verses 12 to 17, produced great convulsions, affecting both the heavens and the earth, which brought terror into the hearts of all. Then came a pause, the winds of heaven being arrested until the servants of God were sealed. Chapter 8 brings us to the opening of the 7th seal, and again there is a pause, described as silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. What transpires on earth during that time is not stated. Divine judgment, when it falls, is not only sure but swift, yet it is never hurried. During this interval of silence the 7 angels prepared themselves to sound their trumpets. There is a calm serenity about the divine action in judgment, and it is postponed to the last possible moment. Angels now come into prominence. This is in keeping with the Lord's own words in Matthew 13 verses 39 and 41, 49, and again in 2400 hours 31. Angels of special importance are indicated here, the 7 angels which stood before God. To Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist, the angel announced himself as Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, Luke 1 verse 19. These 7 angels had that peculiar privilege also. In the trumpets that were given to them we have a symbol that differs from the seals. The breaking of the seals not only set in motion the providential judgments that came on men, but also revealed their secret source. Such things, in a less intense form, had come to pass before. The hand of God in the judgments might not have been discerned, had not the seals been broken. The trumpet, on the other hand, is the symbol of what is clearly avowed, constituting an unmistakable call to all. The trumpet was commonly used in Israel, whether for calling an assembly or sounding an alarm. In our chapter the alarm is sounded with great emphasis. But again, there took place during the half hour the action of another angel, detailed in verses 3 to 5. This great angel acted in high priestly capacity, adding the fragrance of his incense to the prayers of all saints. Many therefore see in him a symbolic representation of Christ himself, and we think they are right. His action was twofold. First, he acted on behalf of living saints, so that their prayers might ascend before God as an odor of a sweet smell. There were still saints on earth, though many had been martyred, as Revelation 6 verse 9 showed. Those uttered their cry for vengeance, but they did not need the action of the high priest as these did. In the second place, his action indicated the fire of judgment. The same censer, that was used for incense and fragrance, was now filled with fire from the altar, and flung to the earth as a signal for the trumpet judgments to begin. The censer was golden in keeping with the golden altar, symbolic of that which is divine in its intrinsic excellence. So whether it was the prayers of saints ascending in fragrance, or fire descending in judgment, all was executed in a righteousness which is divine. In verses 7 to 13 we get the sounding of the first 4 trumpets and the results. The language continues to be highly symbolic, and a feature common to each is that the judgments only fall upon a third part of the things affected. This shows that for the moment the effects are not universal but limited. The phrase, the third part, occurs again in Revelation 12 verse 4, where the Roman Empire, energized by Satan, is in question. This leads to the conclusion that here it is used to indicate the Roman earth, which is practically to be identified with the Western European powers, or perhaps we may say, Christendom. Another thing we notice in these verses is that the judgments fall on things rather than men. Yet the things specified earth, trees, grass, sea and creatures in it, ships, rivers, fountains, sun, moon, stars, are not themselves moral agents, and so accountable to God. Man is the rebel sinner who has to be dealt with. The things are symbols of man and of what is connected with him. For instance, earth signifies the stable organized nations, in contrast with sea, the restless, disorganized peoples. Trees signify the great men of the earth, in contrast with green grass, which indicates the common people, but in a prosperous state. Ships would be the symbol of commerce. Rivers and fountains of the channels and sources of life and refreshment. The darkening of part of both day and night would indicate the disturbance of the whole course of nature to the blinding of men. The judgment inflicted is symbolic in each case. Hail and fire, mingled with blood, must signify judgment from heaven of a crushing and searching nature, bringing death in its train. A great mountain burning with fire, cast into the sea, some imposing and apparently stable institution crashing under divine judgment into the restless masses of humanity. A great star burning as a lamp and falling from heaven, speaks rather of some prominent individual, who had shone as a luminary utterly apostatizing, and spreading death-dealing poison of a spiritual sort. The smiting of the third part of sun, moon and stars indicates the partial putting out of the sources of light and direction for men. It is of course quite possible that we may have here reference also to great sights and signs and catastrophes in the realm of nature. But such things are not, we judge, the main objects of the prophecy, which has to do with what is spiritual and moral rather than what is physical and material. After the 4th trumpet a very grave warning was sounded. Eagle rather than angel is the better attested reading in verse 13, which is significant in view of the Lord's words in Matthew 24 verse 28. The state of the inhabitants of the earth is becoming like that of a putrid carcass, and hence the 3 following trumpets are to unleash judgments of threefold intensity. This phrase, or the equivalent, them that dwell on the earth, occurs a number of times in the book, and usually indicates a special class, whose interests and hopes are completely centered on the earth, and who have excluded all that is of heaven from their thoughts. As Christians we have a heavenly calling, and yet the present trend of religious thought is to concentrate exclusively on the earth, and to treat our hope of heaven with derision. When the church is gone, the earth dwellers will be striving for their earthly paradise and expecting it as a result of their efforts. These apostates will specially come under the governmental wrath of God.